haunting glimpse in a neon-lit alley unveils a chilling truth behind a father's betrayal. Will justice reunite a broken family? Like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell for our latest thrilling tales. Don't miss what's next. Mira's breath rasped in her throat, the humid Jakarta air thick with the stench of diesel and fried shallots, as she stood rooted in a rain-slicked alley, neon signs painting her pale face in jagged streaks of pink and blue. Her fingers trembled, clutching a creased photo of her daughter, Lena, taken at 9, her hazel eyes bright with a laugh that now haunted Mira's sleepless nights. 7 years had passed since that cursed night in 2018, aboard the Aurora Star, a luxury cruise liner slicing through the South China Sea, its decks aglow with chandeliers and champagne flutes. Mira could still hear the storm's howl, the ship lurching as waves battered its hull, the moment her world collapsed. Her husband, Damien, always teetering on the edge of ruin with his gambling debts and shady deals, had insisted on the cruise. A family reset, he'd called it, his charming smile masking something darker. Lena, 16, vibrant, with curls that caught the sunlight, had been thrilled, dancing under the stars, unaware of the danger. The official report was a knife to Mira's heart, a rogue wave, a broken railing on the upper deck. Damien and Lena swept overboard, their bodies lost to the sea's depths. No witnesses, no wreckage, only a Coast Guard's sterile condolence and a memorial service where Mira's sobs echoed in an empty church. She'd fought the verdict, hiring investigators, scouring ports from Singapore to Manila, but every lead died, leaving her hollowed by grief, a mother clinging to a fading hope. Now, in this neon-charged underworld, that hope roared back to life. A stranger's tip, slipped under her hotel door in Jakarta, had led her hear a cryptic note about a trafficking ring tied to cruise ships, a long shot born of desperation. Her heels clicked against the wet pavement, the alley's pulse of voices and sizzling woks fading as her eyes locked on a grimy window framed by a flickering red neon sign, its broken heart shape pulsing like a wound. Inside stood a teenage girl, her face gaunt, dark curls framing cheekbones that mirrored Lena's, her hazel eyes dulled by fear but unmistakable. "Lena," Mira choked, her voice breaking, pounding the glass with fists that ached, her wedding ring still worn, a ghost of Damien's vows clinking against the pane. The girl's lips parted, recognition flashing, a silent plea in her stare, but a shadow loomed behind Heraman, his face obscured by a hood, yanking her back into the darkness with a brutal grip. Mira screamed, hammering the window, cracks spiderwebbing under her blows, shards cutting her knuckles, blood mixing with rain. The door beside the window burst open, 3 men in leather jackets charging out, their faces hard, eyes glinting with menace. One swung a baton, its metal gleaming under neon. Another brandished a knife, its blade wickedly curved. The third cracked his knuckles, a smirk curling his lips. "Run!" The girl's voice pierced through, muffled, desperate, a sound that tore Mira's heart. She dodged the baton, its edge clipping her shoulder, pain exploding down her arm. She sprinted down the alley, her coat flapping, purse spilling Lena's photo, a second copy, fluttering to the pavement, soaking in a puddle. The men pursued, their boots splashing, shouting in guttural Indonesian, their flashlights slicing the dark. Mira's lungs burned, her legs unsteady, but Lena's face drove her forward. She veered into a side street, neon signs blurring into streaks, the city's pulse a chaotic roar. Her mind raced, Damien's late-night calls before the cruise, his nervous glances, the way he'd brushed off questions about his investments. The Aurora Star's crew had been too quick to close the case, their logs vague, a steward's shifty eyes lingering in her memory. Had Damien staged it, sold their daughter to settle his debts? The thought was a blade, sharper than grief. She ducked behind a stack of crates, their wood slimy with mold, her breath ragged, heart slamming against her ribs. The men's flashlights swept closer, one kicking a crate, splintering it, the crack echoing like a gunshot. Mira's hand closed on a broken bottle, its jagged edge cold, a desperate weapon. She bolted, weaving through a crowded night market, stalls packed with steaming dumplings and knockoff watches, the air thick with spice and sweat. The crowd parted, then closed, swallowing her momentarily. A knife slashed her coat, the blade grazing her back, a hot sting spreading. She hurled the bottle, glass shattering against a pursuer's cheek, blood spraying as he staggered, cursing, clutching his face. The second man tackled her, his baton raised, its metal glinting like a promise of pain. Mira drove her elbow into his nose, cartilage crunching, and twisted free, her coat tearing in his grip. The third grabbed her arm, his fingers bruising, but she stomped his foot, her heel grinding, and broke away. A taxi's headlights flared through the rain, its horn blaring. She dove inside, slamming the door, her voice hoarse. "Drive anywhere now." She threw a wad of rupiah at the driver, his eyes wide but unquestioning. The car peeled away, tires screeching, the men's shouts fading into the city's din, their flashlights shrinking in the rear view. Mira's hands shook, the photo creased in her grip. Lena's smile a beacon through the fog of fear. Her daughter was alive, trapped in a nightmare, and Damian, if he'd betrayed them, would face her wrath. The Aurora Star's shadow loomed larger now, its polished decks hiding a crime she'd tear apart. Mira's grief hardened into a vow. She'd burn this city to the ground, claw through every alley, to bring Lena home, no matter the blood it cost. Mira's hands shook as she gripped Lena's faded photo, the taxi's rumble a flimsy barrier against the neon-drenched chaos of Jakarta's streets, the city's pulse throbbing like a wound. Her shoulder burned where the baton had struck, her coat shredded, blood crusting on her knuckles from pounding that cursed window where she'd seen her daughter Lena, alive, her hazel eyes pleading through grime and fear. 7 years had carved Mira hollow, the Aurora Star's tragedy a chain around her heart. That night in 2018, the cruise liner's decks had gleamed with opulence, Damian's charm masking his gambling debts, Lena's laughter, a fleeting light before the storm's roar swallowed them. The reportrogue wave, broken railing, bodies lost had been a lie. Mira knew now, the stranger's tip about a trafficking ring tied to cruise ships leading her to that neon alley. She directed the driver to a rundown motel on Jakarta's outskirts, its flickering sign spelling "Rest in cracked bulbs," a promise of safety she didn't trust. The room reeked of mildew, the mattress sagging under her weight, but Mira bolted the door, her breath jagged, and pulled out her phone. She scrolled to Lucas, a private investigator who'd chased the Aurora Star case until her savings dried up, his gruff voice a lifeline. "Mira, you're chasing shadows," he said, static crackling. "Lena's alive," she snapped, her voice steel, sending him the photo and the alley's coordinates. "Get to Jakarta, now." Lucas promised to arrive by dawn, but warned, "Trafficking rings kill to stay hidden." Sleep was a stranger. Mira's mind replayed the cruise Damian's hushed calls on the ship's balcony, a steward's evasive glance, the Coast Guard's rushed dismissal. She opened her laptop, digging through old files Lucas had sent. Passenger lists, crew logs, a grainy photo of Damian shaking hands with a man in a suit, the Aurora Star's logo on his cufflink. A name surfaced: PT Global Maritime, a shipping firm tied to the cruise line, rumored to launder money through Southeast Asian ports. Its Jakarta office was a lead, a spark in the dark. Dawn bled through the motel's blinds, grey and heavy, when Lucas knocked, his leather jacket scuffed, eyes sharp despite the red-eye flight. His duffel clinked lockpicks, a concealed pistol, burner phones, and a taser. "This better be real," he said, studying Lena's photo, her smile a ghost. Mira's jaw clenched. "It's her." They drove to PT Global's office in the Port District, a squat concrete building, its windows tinted, security cameras glinting like eyes. The air smelled of salt and oil, cranes groaning in the distance. Lucas picked the lock, the door creaking into a dim lobby, dust motes dancing in slants of light. Filing cabinets lined the walls, computers humming softly, a faint buzz of danger in the silence. Mira's heart pounded as they split up, her fingers rifling through foldership manifests, payrolls, coded transactions. Lucas jimmied a locked drawer, revealing a leather-bound ledger, its pages dense with names, dates, and sums. Mira's breath caught. Lena, 16, transfer to Jakarta, 2018, scrawled in black ink, Damian's signature a jagged betrayal beside it. Her knees buckled, rage and grief colliding. "He sold her," she whispered, tears burning. Lucas flipped further, finding dozens of names girls, boys, all young, trafficked through cruise routes. Before they could dig deeper, an alarm shrieked, red lights pulsing, cameras swiveling. 3 guards burst through a side door, batons raised, radios barking in Indonesian, their faces hard with intent. Lucas tackled the first, his pistol cracking against the man's temple, dropping him like a stone. Mira grabbed a heavy stapler, hurling it at the second, catching his eye, blood welling as he staggered, clutching his face. The third swung his baton, aiming for Lucas, but Mira dove, grabbing a trash can and slamming it into his knees, the metal clanging as he fell. Lucas snatched the ledger, shoving it into his jacket, and they sprinted for the exit. But a 4th guard blocked the door, a knife flashing in his grip, its blade curved and wicked. Mira's pulse roared. She seized a fire extinguisher from the wall, yanking the pin and spraying foam, the guard choking, blinded, his knife clattering. Lucas kicked his chest, sending him sprawling, and they burst into the humid morning, alarms wailing like banshees. A black SUV screeched from the lot, its tinted windows hiding the driver, tires burning rubber. Lucas shoved Mira behind a stack of shipping crates, bullets pinging off metal, splintering wood. He fired back, his pistol's crack sharp, shattering the SUV's windshield, the vehicle swerving into a pallet of fish, crates toppling. Mira's lungs burned as they ran, weaving through dockworkers unloading trawlers, the port's chaos a fleeting shield. A second SUV joined the chase, its engine roaring, a guard leaning out, firing a taser, its prongs sparking in the air. Mira dodged, the prongs embedding in a crate, and Lucas pulled her into a maze of containers, their rusted hulks towering. They climbed a ladder, the metal slick, and crouched on a container's roof, hearts pounding as the SUVs circled below, guards shouting, flashlights sweeping. Lucas led her to a safe house, a cramped apartment above a noodle shop, its air thick with soy and grease, walls vibrating with the city's hum. Inside, Mira pored over the ledger, each name of stab-children stolen, sold, Damien's hand in every deal, his alias D. Voss, tied to payments from Bangkok to Dubai. Lucas hacked a burner laptop, cross-referencing names, tracing the ledger's codes to a warehouse in Jakarta's slums, a stronghold of the trafficking ring. "Lena's there," Mira said, her voice trembling but ironclad. Lena's photo a talisman in her hand. Lucas loaded his pistol, checking the taser. "We hit it tonight, but they'll be armed, ready." Mira nodded, her grief a forge, tempering her into something unbreakable. She'd tear through this city, through Damien's lies to bring her daughter home, no matter the blood it demanded. Mira's hands shook as she gripped Lena's faded photo. The taxis rumble a flimsy barrier against the neon-drenched chaos of Jakarta's streets, the city's pulse throbbing like a wound. Her shoulder burned where the baton had struck, her coat shredded, blood crusting on her knuckles from pounding that cursed window where she'd seen her daughter Lena, alive, her hazel eyes pleading through grime and fear. 7 years had carved Mira hollow, the Aurora Star's tragedy a chain around her heart. That night in 2018, the cruise liner's decks had gleamed with opulence, Damien's charm masking his gambling debts, Lena's laughter a fleeting light before the storm's roar swallowed them. The report rogue wave, broken railing, bodies lost had been a lie. Mira knew now, the stranger's tip about a trafficking ring tied to cruise ships leading her to that neon alley. She directed the driver to a rundown motel on Jakarta's outskirts, its flickering sign spelling, "Rest in cracked bulbs," a promise of safety she didn't trust. The room reeked of mildew, the mattress sagging under her weight, but Mira bolted the door, her breath jagged, and pulled out her phone. She scrolled to Lucas, a private investigator who'd chased the Aurora Star case until her savings dried up, his gruff voice a lifeline. "Mira, you're chasing shadows," he said, static crackling. "Lena's alive," she snapped, her voice steel, sending him the photo and the alley's coordinates. "Get to Jakarta, now." Lucas promised to arrive by dawn, but warned, trafficking rings kill to stay hidden. Sleep was a stranger. Mira's mind replayed the crew's Damien's hushed calls on the ship's balcony, a steward's evasive glance, the Coast Guard's rushed dismissal. She opened her laptop, digging through old files Lucas had sent, passenger lists, crew logs, a grainy photo of Damien shaking hands with a man in a suit, the Aurora Star's logo on his cufflink. A name surfaced, PT Global Maritime, a shipping firm tied to the cruise line, rumored to launder money through Southeast Asian ports. Its Jakarta office was a lead, a spark in the dark. Dawn bled through the motel's blinds, grey and heavy, When Lucas knocked, his leather jacket scuffed, eyes sharp despite the red-eye flight. His duffel clinked lockpicks, a concealed pistol, burner phones, and a taser. "This better be real," he said, studying Lena's photo, her smile a ghost. Mira's jaw clenched. "It's her." They drove to PT Global's office in the Port District, a squat concrete building, its windows tinted, security cameras glinting like eyes. The air smelled of salt and oil, cranes groaning in the distance. Lucas picked the lock, the door creaking into a dim lobby, dust motes dancing in slants of light. Filing cabinets lined the walls, computers humming softly, a faint buzz of danger in the silence. Mira's heart pounded as they split up, her fingers rifling through foldership manifests, payrolls, coded transactions. Lucas jimmied a lock drawer, revealing a leather-bound ledger, its pages dense with names, dates, and sums. Mira's breath caught. Lena, 16, transfer to Jakarta, 2018. Scrawled in black ink, Damien's signature a jagged betrayal beside it. Her knees buckled, rage and grief colliding. "He sold her," she whispered, tears burning. Lucas flipped further, finding dozens of names girls, boys, all young, trafficked through cruise routes. Before they could dig deeper, an alarm shrieked, red lights pulsing, cameras swiveling. 3 guards burst through a side door, batons raised, radios barking in Indonesian, their faces hard with intent. Lucas tackled the first, his pistol cracking against the man's temple, dropping him like a stone. Mira grabbed a heavy stapler, hurling it at the second, catching his eye, blood welling as he staggered, clutching his face. The third swung his baton, aiming for Lucas, but Mira dove, grabbing a trash can and slamming it into his knees, the metal clanging as he fell. Lucas snatched the ledger, shoving it into his jacket, and they sprinted for the exit. But a 4th guard blocked the door, a knife flashing in his grip, its blade curved and wicked. Mira's pulse roared. She seized a fire extinguisher from the wall, yanking the pin and spraying foam, the guard choking, blinded, his knife clattering. Lucas kicked his chest, sending him sprawling, and they burst into the humid morning, alarms wailing like banshees. A black SUV screeched from the lot, its tinted windows hiding the driver, tires burning rubber. Lucas shoved Mira behind a stack of shipping crates, bullets pinging off metal, splintering wood. He fired back, his pistols cracked sharp, shattering the SUV's windshield, the vehicle swerving into a pallet of fish, crates toppling. Mira's lungs burned as they ran, weaving through dock workers unloading trawlers, the port's chaos a fleeting shield. A second SUV joined the chase, its engine roaring, a guard leaning out, firing a taser, its prongs sparking in the air. Mira dodged, the prongs embedding in a crate, and Lucas pulled her into a maze of containers, their rusted hulks towering. They climbed a ladder, the metal slick, and crouched on a container's roof, hearts pounding as the SUVs circled below, guards shouting, flashlights sweeping. Lucas led her to a safe house, a cramped apartment above a noodle shop, its air thick with soy and grease, walls vibrating with the city's hum. Inside, Mira pored over the ledger, each name a stab children stolen, sold, Damien's hand in every deal, his alias, D. Voss, tied to payments from Bangkok to Dubai. Lucas hacked a burner laptop, cross-referencing names, tracing the ledger's codes to a warehouse in Jakarta's slums, a stronghold of the trafficking ring. "Lena's there," Mira said, her voice trembling but ironclad. Lena's photo a talisman in her hand. Lucas loaded his pistol, checking the taser. "We hit it tonight, but they'll be armed, ready." Mira nodded, her grief a forge, tempering her into something unbreakable. She'd tear through this city, through Damien's lies, to bring her daughter home, no matter the blood it demanded. Mira's pulse hammered as she crouched in the shadows of Jakarta's slums, the air thick with the stench of open sewers and rotting garbage, the distant hum of neon fading into the night's oppressive heat. Lucas, his leather jacket blending with the dark, checked his pistol's clip, his eyes scanning the warehouse ahead a rusted fortress of corrugated metal, its windows boarded, guarded by men with automatic rifles. The ledger, stuffed in Mira's torn coat alongside Lena's photo, burned like a brand, its pages damning Damien for selling their daughter to a trafficking ring tied to the Aurora Star. 7 years of grief had led to this moment, The truth that Lena was alive, trapped within those walls, driving Mira beyond fear. Lucas whispered, 2 guards at the gate, 3 on the roof. We go silent. Mira nodded, her fingers tight around a crowbar scavenged from the safe house, her shoulder still throbbing from the baton strike 2 nights ago. They crept through an alley, skirting piles of discarded tires, the slum's labyrinth their only cover. A guard lit a cigarette, his rifle slung, and Lucas struck, his arm locking around the man's throat, silencing him before he hit the ground. Mira dragged the body behind a dumpster, her hands shaking but steady. Lucas disarmed the second guard with a swift kick to the wrist, the rifle clattering, and a taser to the chest, dropping him twitching. They slipped through the gate, the warehouse's interior, a maze of crates and flickering fluorescent lights. The air reeked of sweat and fear, faint whimpers echoing from deeper within. Mira's heart clenched. Lena was here, somewhere. They navigated the aisles, Lucas leading, his pistol raised, until they reached a locked steel door, a keypad glowing red. The ledger had mentioned a holding area, and this was it. Lucas pulled a lockpick set, working the door, but a shout cut through a guard on patrol, his radio crackling. Mira swung the crowbar, catching his knee, bone crunching, and Lucas silenced him with a pistol butt to the temple. The door clicked open, revealing a dimly lit corridor, its walls stained, the air heavy with despair. Cages lined the hall, young faces peering through bars, eyes hollow with trauma. Mira's breath caught, searching for Lena, but the girls were strangers, their fear a mirror to her own. Lucas found a computer terminal, hacking it with a USB drive, downloading files, names, transactions, routes, proof of the ring's global reach. A folder labeled Jakarta Transfers listed Lena, marked Relocated Premium Buyer. Mira's stomach churned. Her daughter was still here, but time was slipping. An alarm blared, red lights flashing, boots thundering from above. 4 guards stormed the corridor, rifles raised, shouting orders. Lucas fired, a bullet grazing a guard's shoulder, blood spraying, while Mira dove behind a crate, the crowbar useless against guns. Bullets splintered wood, ricocheting off metal, and Lucas returned fire, dropping 1 guard, but the others advanced, their radios calling for backup. Mira grabbed a fire axe from the wall, its blade heavy, and swung, smashing a guard's rifle, the metal bending. Lucas tackled another, wrestling him to the ground, fists pounding, but the third fired, a bullet grazing Mira's arm, blood soaking her sleeve. She screamed, rage overtaking pain, and hurled the axe, its handle cracking the guard's jaw, dropping him. Lucas yanked her into a side room, barricading the door with a desk, but the guard's battering ram splintered it. They fled through a vent, crawling through tight, rusted metal, the air stale, until they dropped into a loading bay, trucks idling outside. A USB drive from the terminal, now in Lucas's pocket, held the ring's secrets, but Lena was still inside. A black SUV screeched into the bay, 5 more guards spilling out, their rifles sweeping. Lucas fired, shattering a headlight, and Mira grabbed a wrench from a toolbox, hurling it, smashing a guard's knee. They dove behind a truck, bullets pinging off its chassis, and Lucas hotwired it, the engine roaring. They crashed through the bay doors, guards diving aside, but the SUV pursued, ramming their rear, glass shattering. Mira leaned out, throwing a crate of bolts, the metal scattering across the road, puncturing the SUV's tires, forcing it to swerve into a ditch. They abandoned the truck in the slums, disappearing into the maze, the USB their only victory, Lena's fate, a knife in Mira's heart. Mira's heart slammed against her ribs, her bloodied arm trembling as she faced Damien in the cavernous warehouse, his gun glinting under a flickering fluorescent bulb, its barrel trained on her chest. The air reeked of rust, diesel and betrayal, crates looming like tombstones in the dim light of Tanjung Priok's port district. Lucas crouched beside her, his pistol raised, sweat streaking his face, the USB drive, and Lena's photo a heavy weight in Mira's torn coat, proof of the trafficking ring that had stolen her daughter. 7 years of grief, of clinging to a lie that Damien and Lena had drowned aboard the Aurora Star had led to this moment. And Damien's face, once her anchor, now a stranger's, was carved with guilt and defiance. "You were supposed to move on," he said, his voice low, almost pleading, but the gun didn't waver, its cold steel a testament to his cowardice. Mira's rage surged, Lena's absence of fire in her veins. "You sold our daughter," she spat, her crowbar slick with sweat, its weight a tether to reality. Lucas's eyes flicked to the shadows, his grip tightening, but a faint cry pierced the silence. Lena's voice, weak, desperate, echoing from deeper within. Mira's resolve crystallized. She'd claw through hell to reach her. Before she could act, the warehouse's steel door exploded inward. 5 enforcers storming in, their rifles flashing under the flickering lights. Black jackets emblazoned with the ring's Lagoa stylized wave, a cruel echo of the Aurora Star's demise. Damien flinched, his gun dipping, and Lucas fired, the shot grazing an enforcer's arm, blood spraying across a crate. Mira dove behind a stack of pallets, bullets splintering wood, showering her with shards, her crowbar useless against gunfire. Damien shouted, "Hold fire, you idiots!" But the enforcers ignored him, their radios crackling with orders in clipped Indonesian, their boots pounding the concrete. Lucas returned fire, dropping one, the man's rifle clattering as he fell, but the others fanned out, their muzzle flashes lighting the dark. Mira's arm burned, the bullet grazed from the warehouse raid, pulsing with pain. But she crawled through the shadows, her eyes locked on a rusted steel staircase leading to a catwalk above. Lena's cry grew louder, a beacon pulling her forward. She climbed, the metal groaning under her weight, each step a battle against fear and exhaustion. Damien's voice chased her. "Mira, you don't understand. I had no choice." She ignored him, her fingers scraping the catwalk's edge, pulling herself up, the warehouse a chaos of gunfire below. A locked door at the catwalk's end bore scratches, desperate marks, Lena's marks. Mira jammed the crowbar into the lock, metal screeching, and pried it open, the door swinging wide. Inside, Lena lay on a filthy mattress, wrists and ankles bound with zip ties, her hazel eyes wide with terror but alive, her face gaunt, curls matted. "Mom," she choked, tears carving tracks through the dirt on her cheeks. Mira's heart shattered, dropping the crowbar to cut the ties with a jagged piece of metal from the floor, her hands shaking as she pulled Lena into a fierce embrace, their sobs mingling, a moment stolen from the nightmare. Below, Lucas shouted, pinned behind a crate, 3 enforcers closing in, their rifles spitting bullets that ricocheted off steel. Damien stood frozen, his gun lowered, his eyes darting between the chaos and the catwalk, conflict twisting his face. Mira dragged Lena toward the catwalk's edge, but an enforcer climbed the stairs, his rifle raised, his sneer visible under the flickering light. She swung the crowbar, its arc cracking his knee, bone snapping, sending him tumbling over the railing, his scream ending in a sickening thud on the concrete below. Lucas's voice cut through. "Mira, get out." But a bullet grazed his thigh, blood soaking his jeans, his pistol slipping as he staggered. Mira and Lena descended the stairs, dodging a hail of bullets, the air thick with smoke and cordite. They reached Lucas, who shoved the USB into Mira's hand, his face pale but fierce. "Run," he gasped, reloading with trembling fingers. Damien stepped forward, his gun shaking, his voice breaking. "I did it for us, Mira. The debts they'd have killed me, then you. Lena was the price." Mira's vision blurred with rage. She lunged, her fist crashing into his jaw, blood spraying, and shoved him into a crate, his gun clattering as he slumped, unconscious. The remaining enforcers advanced, their rifles trained, but Mira spotted a flare gun mounted on the wall, its red casing glinting. She ripped it free, firing into a stack of crates, the projectile bursting into flames, igniting spilled fuel, fire roaring through the warehouse. Smoke choked the air, alarms screaming, the enforcers coughing, their shots wild. Mira pulled Lena toward a side exit, Lucas limping behind, his pistol firing to cover their retreat. The flames spread, crates collapsing, the warehouse a furnace. They burst into the port's humid night, dockworkers shouting, sirens wailing in the distance. A black SUV screeched toward them, 4 more enforcers spilling out, tasers crackling, rifles raised. Lucas hotwired a nearby forklift, its engine roaring, and rammed the SUV, metal crunching, glass shattering, the enforcers diving aside. Mira and Lena ran, weaving through a maze of shipping containers, Lena's grip fierce despite her weakness, her bare feet bleeding on the asphalt. Lucas caught up, blood trailing from his leg, but he waved them on, firing at the pursuing enforcers, dropping one with a shot to the chest. The USB in Mira's coat held the ring's secrets enough to dismantle it, but Damien's confession, his pathetic justification, cut deeper than any wound. They ducked into an alley, the port's cranes looming like silent judges, the SUV's headlights fading but not gone. Mira held Lena close, her daughter's heartbeat a promise she'd fight to keep, no matter the cost. Mira's lungs burned as she pulled Lena through the labyrinth of shipping containers in Tanjung Priok's port, the humid night air thick with the stench of fish and engine grease. Lena's bare feet bled, her frail body trembling from years of captivity, but her hazel eyes blazed with a fierce will to survive, her grip on Mira's hand unyielding. Lucas limped behind, his thigh oozing blood from a bullet graze, his pistol nearly empty, the USB drive the key to dismantling the trafficking ring tucked in his jacket, alongside the ledger's damning evidence of Damien's betrayal. The warehouse fire roared in the distance, its orange glow painting the sky, sirens screaming as Jakarta's port descended into chaos. Mira's arm throbbed, the bullet graze pulsing with pain, but Lena's presence was a fire in her chest, drowning out everything else. The black SUV's headlights cut through the dark, its engine a relentless growl as enforcers pursued, their rifles spitting bullets that pinged off steel containers, narrowly missing their prey. Mira's heart pounded. She'd knocked out Damien, her husband turned traitor. But the ring's grip on Lena's life was far from broken. They ducked behind a rusted crane, its shadow a fleeting sanctuary, the dockworkers' shouts swallowed by the blaring sirens. Lucas panted, "We need to hit their strongholder compound in the slums. It's where they process transfers." The USB's data, hastily scanned at the safe house, had revealed a fortified safe house, a hub for high-value victims like Lena, run by the syndicate's top brass. Mira nodded, her crowbar slick with sweat. Lena's photo creased in her pocket, a reminder of the stakes. They sprinted toward a derelict dock, weaving through crates, but the SUV screeched closer, two enforcers leaping out, wielding tasers and machetes, their black jackets flashing the ring's wave logo. Lucas fired his last bullet, grazing a machete, wielder's shoulder, blood spraying, but the other charged, taser crackling. Mira swung her crowbar, cracking the man's wrist, the taser skidding into the water, sparking. Lena grabbed a loose chain from a crate, whipping it at the enforcer's legs, tripping him, her defiance a spark of the girl she'd been. They ran, Lucas hot-wiring a battered pickup truck, its engine coughing to life. Mira helped Lena into the cab, her daughter's weight featherlight but precious, and they peeled out, the SUV ramming their tailgate, metal screeching. Lucas swerved, dodging a bullet that shattered the side mirror, glass raining. Mira leaned out, hurling a wrench from the truck's floor, smashing the SUV's windshield, forcing it to veer into a pile of nets. The slums loomed, a warren of shacks and flickering lights, the compound a concrete fortress guarded by razor wire and floodlights. Lucas stopped a block away, the truck hidden in an alley. "We need allies," he said, dialing a contact Rena, a former victim turned vigilante, who'd been tracking the ring. Rena met them in a gutted bar, her face scarred, a shotgun slung over her shoulder. "I've got 5 other survivors, armed," she said, her voice steel. "We hit the compound now." Mira's heart swelled. Lena's rescue wasn't hers alone. The group Rena's crew, Mira, Lucas, and Lena stormed the compound, cutting through wire with bolt cutters, floodlights shattering under silenced shots. Inside, the corridors were a maze, reeking of bleach and fear, guards patrolling with rifles. Mira led, her crowbar ready, Lena behind her, clutching a knife Rena gave her. They ambushed a guard, Lucas snapping his neck silently, but an alarm blared, red lights flashing. 10 enforcers flooded the hall, rifles firing, bullets ricocheting off concrete. Rena's shotgun roared, dropping 2, blood pooling, while Mira swung her crowbar, cracking a rifleman's jaw. Lucas fired a stolen pistol, grazing another, but a machete wielder slashed his arm, blood spraying. Lena stabbed the man's thigh, her knife sinking deep, and Mira pulled her back, shielding her. They fought through, finding a locked cell block, screams echoing inside. Mira pried the door, freeing a dozen girls, but Lena whispered, "They moved me yesterday, this isn't it." The compound shook, explosives rigged by the ring detonating, walls crumbling. Rena shouted. "Out now!" They ran, dragging the freed girls, debris falling, smoke choking the air. An enforcer blocked the exit, rifle raised, but Mira tackled him, her crowbar smashing his shoulder, bone crunching. They burst into the night, the compound collapsing, flames licking the sky. The USB was safe, Lena alive, but the ring's leaders had escaped, their network wounded but not dead. Mira held Lena close, vowing to finish this, the fight for justice only beginning. Mira's arms tightened around Lena, her daughter's trembling form a fragile anchor as they crouched in a Jakarta alley, the smoldering ruins of the trafficking ring's compound casting an acrid haze across the slums. Lucas leaned against a crumbling wall, his bloodied thigh wrapped in a torn shirt, his face etched with pain but resolve. The USB drive and ledger clutched in his jacket, proof of the ring's atrocities and Damien's betrayal burning like a brand. Rena, the scarred vigilante, stood guard, her shotgun ready, her crew of survivors tending to the freed girls, their faces hollow but defiant. The port sirens wailed, police and fire trucks converging, but the ring's leaders had slipped away, their network wounded yet alive. Lena's hazel eyes, dulled by years of captivity, met Mira's, a silent plea for safety, but the truth gnawed at them. Lena's relocation meant she was still a target, and Damien, left unconscious in the warehouse fire, might have survived. Mira's heart clenched, her husband's confession, his pathetic claim of saving them by selling Lena, fueled her rage. Lucas coughed, wiping blood from his lip. "The USB's got names, buyers, routes, bank accounts. We leak it, the ring's done." Rena nodded, her voice steel. "I know a journalist, Sari, who can broadcast it globally." They moved, slipping through the slum's maze, the freed girls following, their footsteps soft but determined. Sari's safe house was a cluttered loft above a pawn shop, its air thick with cigarette smoke and ink, laptops humming with encrypted files. Sari, a wiry woman with sharp eyes, took the USB, her fingers flying across keys, uploading the ledger's data to secure servers. "This'll hit every news outlet by dawn," she said, but warned, "The ring's got cops on payroll. We're not safe here." Mira held Lena's hand, her daughter's warmth a lifeline, but a flicker of movement outside a black SUV, its engine idlings and her pulse racing. Lucas peered through the blinds, cursing. "They found us." Before they could bolt, the door exploded inward, 6 enforcers storming in, rifles and tasers flashing, their Wave logo jackets a grim reminder of the Aurora Star's shadow. Rena fired her shotgun, the blast shredding a guard's vest, blood spraying, while Lucas tackled another, his pistol cracking against the man's skull. Mira pushed Lena behind a couch, grabbing a letter opener from Sari's desk, its blade thin but sharp, and slashed a guard's arm, blood welling as he staggered. Sari hurled a monitor, glass shattering, buying time to upload the final files. The enforcers fired, bullets tearing through walls, and Lucas took a taser hit, convulsing, his pistol skidding. Lena, defying her fear, grabbed a chair, smashing it over a guard's back, wood splintering, giving Mira a chance to stab another's thigh, the letter opener sinking deep. Rena reloaded, her shotgun dropping a third, but the remaining enforcers advanced, their rifles trained. Sari shouted, "It's live!" as the broadcast hit TVs flickering with the ledger's names, buyers exposed, outrage erupting online. The enforcers hesitated, radios crackling with panicked orders, but a new threat loomed Damien, his face bruised, bloodied, limping through the door, a gun in his shaking hand. "You ruined everything," he snarled, aiming at Mira. Lena screamed, lunging, but Mira shoved her back, facing Damien, her voice ice. "You ruined us." Lucas, recovering, fired, grazing Damien's shoulder, blood soaking his shirt, and Rena tackled him, pinning him to the floor, her knee on his chest. The enforcers fled, sirens closing in, their masters exposed. Mira and Lena ran, dragging Lucas, Sari, and Rena's crew, leaving Damien bound for the police, his empire of lies crumbling. They reached a dock, stealing a speedboat, its engine roaring as they fled into the night, the USB's data sparking raids across Asia. Lena clung to Mira, her tears a mix of relief and pain, the fight for justice now public, but their healing just beginning. Mira's heart raced as the speedboat tore through the black waters off Jakarta's coast, its hull shuddering against the choppy waves, the city's neon skyline shrinking into a blur of pink and blue. Lena clung to her, her frail body shivering under a tattered jacket, her hazel eyes catching the moonlight. A fragile mix of relief and fear carved into her gaunt face after years in the trafficking ring's clutches. Lucas gripped the helm, his blood-soaked thigh wrapped in a ripped shirt, his face pale from pain but resolute, the USB drive and ledger proof of the syndicate's crimes, and Damien's betrayal tucked safely in his jacket. Rena stood at the bow, her shotgun slung across her scarred shoulder, her eyes scanning the horizon for pursuers, while Sari, the journalist, clutched her laptop, its screen flickering with the last pulses of a broadcast that had exposed the ring's ledger to a global audience, naming buyers, routes, and corrupt officials. The port sirens wailed faintly, fire trucks battling the compound's blaze, but the ring's enforcers were relentless, their black SUVs likely already mobilizing. Mira's arm throbbed, the bullet graze crusted with blood, her coat torn, but Lena's warmth against her drowned out the pain. Damien's face bruised, defeated, left bound in Sari's safe house haunted her, his confession of selling Lena to pay his debts a wound deeper than any bullet. The boat's engine roared, salt spray stinging their faces, as they aimed for a fishing village Rena's contacts promised as a haven. A flash of light cut the darker spotlight from a pursuing patrol boat, its siren piercing. "They're on us," Rena shouted, raising her shotgun. Lucas swerved, the speedboat tilting, waves crashing over the deck, and Mira shielded Lena, her daughter's gasp sharp with fear. Rena fired, the shotgun's blast echoing, shattering the patrol's spotlight, plunging them back into darkness. Bullets zipped past, splashing the water, one grazing the hull, wood splintering. Sari ducked, her laptop nearly slipping, but she clutched it, uploading backups to a secure server, her voice steady. "The world's watching now." Lucas weaved through a reef, rocks scraping the boat's underside, the patrol struggling to follow. Mira grabbed a flare gun from a crate, firing it skyward, the red burst drawing attention from distant fishing boats, a risky distraction. The patrol veered, distracted, and Lucas gunned the engine, pulling ahead, the village's pier looming. They docked, the wooden planks creaking under hurried steps, fishermen eyeing them warily but nodding to Rena's signal. The safe house a weathered shack with a tin roof, smelling of fish and rice offered shelter, its walls lined with nets and lanterns. Lucas collapsed on a cot, a local medic stitching his thigh, blood soaking the cloth, while Rena's crew arrived, the freed girls huddling, their faces a mix of trauma and defiance. Sari connected her laptop to a satellite uplink, ensuring the ledger's data reached Interpol and NGOs, sparking raids in Bangkok, Dubai, and Manila. Mira sat with Lena, cleaning her cuts with a damp cloth, each gentle touch a step toward rebuilding their bond. Lena's tears falling as she whispered, "I thought I'd never see you again." Mira's throat tightened, her own tears blurring her vision. "I never stopped looking," she said, their embrace a shield against the past. News trickled in. PT Global Maritime's CEO arrested, the Aurora Star's logs reopened, crew confessing to staged disappearances, the ring's network unraveling. Interpol's agent, Kadir, arrived, his face grim but hopeful, showing a photo of Damien, cuffed and hollow-eyed, in custody. "He's talking," Kadir said, naming the ring's top brass. Mira's rage flared, but Lena's hand steadied her. Justice, not revenge, was their path. Sari's broadcast fueled global outrage. Politicians and tycoons named in the ledger facing charges, their empires crumbling. Lena, summoning courage, shared her memories with Kadir, pinpointing safe houses in Sumatra and Thailand, guiding raids that freed dozens more. The village became a sanctuary, survivors arriving daily, some reuniting with families, others finding solace in community. Mira and Lena joined therapy led by a counselor named Izia. Their sessions raw, Lena's nightmares of captivity easing as she sketched bright landscapes, a sign of hope. Mira channeled donations into a fund, transforming the shack into a community center with beds, classrooms, and a hotline for victims. Lucas, his leg healing, trained survivors in self-defense, his gruff voice softening as he shared stories of his own losses. Rena led rescue missions, her shotgun a symbol of resistance, each freed girl a victory. Sari's reports kept the pressure on, exposing corrupt cops tied to the ring, her pen as sharp as any blade. Months later, trials began in The Hague, Damien sentenced to life, his testimony dismantling the syndicate's inner circle, his once charming face now a cautionary tale. Mira and Lena stood outside the courtroom, the sea breeze carrying a promise of renewal, their scars visible and unseen a testament to survival. The Aurora star's shadow faded, their family fractured but whole, rebuilt not by miracles but by relentless truth, justice, and love that burned brighter than neon ever could. From a neon alley's shock to dismantling a trafficking empire, this tale of betrayal and redemption gripped us all. Thanks for listening. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications for our latest heart-stopping stories. Join us for the next adventure.